Hi everybody, thank you for showing back up at the shop. The crazy train. Oh man, it has been interesting. And I'm gonna try one thing during this, because like I said last time, we're gonna be tying in the B and C pillars. But we also have to make the thing look like a Sport Quattro. Now, I was under the impression, because I was watching a video, and you probably all seen it as a red Sport Quattro driving around a corner, and it looked like, and I was really looking at the drip rails, and it looked like the drip rails came all the way back, in like an arc. So it's okay, good. I got a little bit of an arc. It's gonna look fine, but this kind of looks funky. But let's see what happens. Then I looked on a website. The pictures that looked at the Sport were very detailed pictures because they were selling it. And what it is there is a slight arc, for the 4000 drip rail, but it stays absolutely steady from here over. And you take a look, we're going to have to go up about a centimeter on this thing. And I'll show you how we're doing that. But that was an epiphany, because you remember I cut this, this was not the point of cutting for measurement. This was the point. So I'm about, whatever, about 1.5 millimeters, 2 millimeters off down here. That's irrelevant. The main thing was the wheelbase, and 1 or 2 millimeters doesn't really affect it, as in the looks of the car and where everything fits. And you'll get that in general. How can I put this? General manufacturing, you do have tolerances, 1 to 2 millimeters, if that's the tolerance they put into the part. You don't know. But let's get on to doing this. I'll finish my coffee, then I'm going to show you. There was a lot of thinking on how to cut this in very small amounts, because the less we cut, the better it's going to be, and the more we need to flow it into the whole line. So we'll just look at that first. But let's get right onto it, and I'm going to bring you over here, and I'm going to show you what exactly I'm doing. Here's the yardstick. As you can see, when it's actually on the flat portion of the drip rail, right there, we have to come up. It looks like 10 mil, 11 mil, something like that. Whatever, it doesn't really matter because we got to lock it in place anyway. Now what we have to do is figure out where to cut for the least amount of welding that we have to do. So let's bring this back over. Where we want to cut? Well, we do not want to cut this. We want to keep all this intact, this entire drip rail intact, because that's the way the factory did it. So I want to pretty much go right down here, not touching this, and go down to the point where you can drive up. But also take a look at this. This is the curve, and I want to keep this factory curve. As you can see, I use the ruler. I did that. What it is this is a flat section. This is the curved section. So I'm basically taking the curved section and bringing it up. And if you take a look at here, see how this curves? It's almost matching the ruler. Well, if you take a look at it, you can bring it up and match it to where it's going to be. So this is going to have to go forward a couple. It's probably about a centimeter, which if I cut this out, it's probably a centimeter. So, yeah, I'd rather be lucky than good, So let me get out the blades. I'm going to show you. Actually, I want to show you one thing with the blades before I do it, and we'll go from there. Here are the two blades that I use for cutting a lot of metal. This one, typical Harbor Freight 2 millimeter blade. Yeah, it's all right, This is the Warrior brand. The other brand, see, this one has an indentation right here. I don't like it at all. I do not like these blades. I will not buy them again. I bought 3 packages just because they were on sale, just to see what they were like. And they're fine, but I'll never buy them again, I don't think. I bought these on Amazon, about the same price, but they're 1 millimeter thick blade. For precise, easy cuts, these things work great. They don't last very long, but oh my God, do they cut really precise. And when you're careful enough, they go in and they come right out, and boom, you're done. They just don't last. This was what I'm going to use because I want the least amount of metal or least amount of material taken away from when I cut. That's a big thing for me. And then we'll put everything back together. But let's get right on, throw this on the grinder, and we'll cut that up and make it look like a Sport. One thing I like to do is stand on the milk crate. Seeing how the car is up on the dolly right now, because I want to have a great view looking down, going straight down. I need that immeasurably. So that's seeing how I wasn't given the grace of height or hair. I gotta improvise. All right, let's plunge cut this sucker. Here's the channel right here. As you can see, at the factory, they used 1, 2, and 3 pieces of steel, actually 4 pieces of steel, because these 2 are butted together, these 3 are butted together. So, and it's also, is this welded to it? You know, there's no spot welds here, so, but they are conforming to it. We also have to think about welding the inside here, then welding the outer joint, then plating everything in. But let me show you what I'm going to do to make this thing sit to where I want it to sit. This is what we're going to use to set a bunch of vice grips and a piece of rectangular stock, basically. That's all it is. Well, what we got to do is we're setting this thing flat. So we have to, there. This is where I want to set it. And if you take a look here, if it's up like that, it needs to go forward. So we need to cut more of this panel right there. Here's our channel right here. In order to set where this is supposed to go, I use my ruler. Take a look. It's just not there. It's probably more, it's more relevant right here if you take a look. So we need to move it that way. What do we got to do? We have to trim this just a little hair, just a hair. What do you think? That goes right on the curve. I think that's good. Let's clean this stuff up and get ready to weld it. Take a look. Here's the line right here, the molding line. Here's this. It's as exact. This is where I want it. Right here, if you go down here, the weld is not, it's a little bit, I mean, you can tell it's, the curve goes right to here. I'm not sure if it was just me grinding too much or welding or whatever, but I gotta fix that when after I weld it. Over here, take the ruler, it goes up and pretty much goes on to that right there. This is being pushed out. So I gotta weld the other side, then push this in to match this sheet metal and this sheet metal, and that way it'll drop down into that groove right there. Now we have to make a filler piece. This is just some old stuff, you know, scrap that I had lying around, and we just have to make it fit. That's something we can grind down. She's really thin in definite places. So this is rough in. I'm happy with it. It's straight across there. I mean, looks like a deal. So when we grind this all down, might have to use a little bit of filler here and there, but I think it's going to work. Okay, what we have here, this is the coupe section right there. This is the 4000. Coupe 4000. What we have is we have an outer shell, we have an interior skin, and we have a center support structure, our brace. It's really hard to get any light in there, but if you can see, this thing is overlapping the inner structure. And what I got to do is pull this, cut it, pull it onto it, and then weld it right here to the entire section. That way I can pull up this and weld it back to this section right here. That's, you know, as much as I can do. Then this section right here needs to be cut off and welded to this and all tied in. Then this is welded to there. That's, you know, your basic support. Is it the main support? No, because I am going to have a tie-in that ties in this to that, and it's going to be right here, and it's going to be all the way around. So we'll get to that in just a second, but let me first grab my air saw, see if I can slice this down so I can pull it up to mate it and try and get the welder in here and do that. Huh, look at that. Let me get my grinder. I'll grind that and weld it in, and then we can start doing the rest of this. That's going to have something different. All right, come to a conclusion. First thing I have to do is I have to slice this. And I'm not going to go all the way through. It's going to be basically a one-shot deal where I'll grind it down, I'm going to slice it, and I'm going to bend it so I can get the MIG gun in there. This is going to go on the back of it. It's going to go right here, and I am going to have a small, how can I put this, bend in it to go all the way down so it rests against the outer roof skin. That's pretty much, you know, the way I was looking at doing it. I don't mind the holes in here because it really doesn't do anything, but I'll use this to do that, and I'll grind this up and grind the inside of that so I can weld it to it, and we'll see if it works, you know. Hey, you know, what's the worst that could happen? So, all right, let me just zip this up. Here's my slit right here. I ground this up. You'll see why I ground it all the way down here when I show you up inside there. Just grounded the edges, and I grounded this. I'm not going to bend it up until the last moment, because every time you bend this, it could break off, and I don't want that to happen. It's thin, and I went through a couple places which I wanted to, so it'll bend easy. Now I have to bend a lip, a small lip, you know, a couple millimeters, I mean 4 or 5 millimeters or something like that, on this side, so it sits up tight to the outer roof skin, or to the roof skin. So let me bend that up, and I think we're going to be all right. Well, I think that inner panel's welded in. What I have to do now is I'm going to make before I push this down and weld it, I'm going to make a stabilizing bracket in there. Let me show you that. The stiffening plate I want to use, it's kind of hard to see because the sunroof drain is right in back of this. Let me see if I can bring it over. The stiffening plate I want to use is to tie in this to this. Is it going to do very much? Probably not. But one thing I have to be very concerned with is the sunroof drain. I originally took a piece of sheet metal, cut it, so it would go right there. But there's not enough room for the tube, or the sunroof drain tube, to fit on properly. What did I do? All I did was I cut it. And this is what I gotta have to have right here. The biggest thing is, don't try and weld anything around the tube, because you don't want any perforations in the sunroof. You have to keep this clear so the sunroof will drain. Let's get right onto it, and I'll clean that up and just weld it right in. welds are all in here. I did another thing on the side here. I'm going to try and go up and go on around again, but I can do it on the other side. I have all the welds up inside here. They don't look that great, but they're strong. Now I can close this flap before it falls off. Then I can go do the other side, and we will start making patches for this. But once this is done, then we're going to make the cross tie, which is, I think, is going to be kind of cool. So let me just weld this in. That way we can get the cross tie in. Oh, damn. Well, that's welded to a point where it's stiff, but we got to make it better. That's the thing. So let's, I'm going to go do the other side, come back, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to brace in between here with extra metal and do some other stuff that's going to actually be fun. Because, well, I don't know if it's going to be fun. Oh, just a quick thing. Take a look at this. Seeing how the plate is in? I'll show you what goes over there. That's without the plate. There's no flex in that whatsoever. There's flex in this. Let's put that other plate in. As you can see, I'm out of welding wire. Yeah, don't know. Yeah, it is what it is. Well, what do we have? We have the C pillar attached to the B pillar in 3 basic forms. It's welded, you know, to the outer portion skin, the middle skin or the inner support structure, and the outer, interior skin right there. Do I trust it for rollover? Probably not. Just because it's butt welded. If it was, no, I still wouldn't trust it. I want to tie the entire chassis in. It's not that it's, you know, I don't really trust my welds. I do. It's, the main thing is just, I want to tie the entire structure in just for crash protection. There's too many possibilities of certain sections coming apart. And in my mind, it is. So what I want to do is I want to have one continuous piece of metal that locks in the sunroof to the B pillar, because you have to remember the sunroof and the B pillar are only locked in with resistance welds, you know, pinch welds. I want to weld in, you know, that, and I want to tie in the C pillar and the back of the rear window frame. And I'm going to show you why I'm tying in the back, because it's at a lip. I welded the top of the lip from the sunroof to that frame, but I also want to tie in the bottom to make a structure. I also want to go in the middle of this to create an extremely rigid structure. The more rigid I can make it, the better it will be. You know, and when you see what I'm trying to do and why I'm trying to do it, I think you're going to get a kick out of it. So let's run over to the bench and let's see exactly what I'm doing. All right? Even I couldn't believe it. So let's go. Yep. More German recycling. Oh, yeah, well, what this is from a 1997 Passat TDI. B3, 4-door. And what it is I got the car, 60,000 miles, rotted out. Just, it's not worth it. And there's even rust around in here, but you know, it was sitting for years, and the engine ran beautifully. I put it in my Corrado. I built all this stuff. I made it into Safari Corrado with a bar and jacked up suspension and all that other stuff. Then a tree fell on it. So if anybody knows of any windshields from Europe that I can buy, you know, for a pretty decent price, because you can't even get them here in the United States, I'd probably get a bunch, and I have other people that would like to have them. So let me know if you know of anybody who would sell me some or ship me some. Other than that, let's get back to this trunk lid. This trunk lid, I was walking around, cup of coffee, looking at it, saying, what can I use to tie in all that stuff in the back. You know, and I want to do a couple things with it, but you know, using regular sheet metal, and I was going to bend it and do this and do that, and it's going to be such a pain. Well, one of the things that I really wanted to do in the back is giving me in this, you know, giving me a head start, let's just say. Now, the first criteria, I had to measure the width. So I have an unbroken piece of metal that goes from either side, left to right. I also needed it wide enough to go 4 inches beyond the B-pillar to the actual rear window frame. Now I need to tie that with an unbroken piece. This is that size. In between here is basically the width of the outer edges of both windows, or both rear windows. And right here is 4 inches up and going onto the rear window frame. So I considered that initially a win. But what really made it for me is this. This is where the reflector goes on the cars. And right here is the license plate. But this is where the reflector, it's a Spog light in Europe, I believe. But ours, I don't think, came with them, because this one was just had a dummy reflector in it. What this is going to be is a speaker. So I can have overhead speakers in the car. And so I can actually hear the music. Because usually the speakers in the back, you know, they're usually really small and pretty weak. But I want to have speakers here. Another thing, early Audis really stunk when it came to opening up the doors at night and having enough interior lights so you can find things. They usually had small lights on the door, and usually if you open up a door to try and find something and you're sitting in the seat, the lights get blocked, and it's just a terrible, terrible setup. What this is going to do, I have plate lights in here already there that I am going to use these as interior lights into the car. So when you open up the car door, these lights are going to be in the middle of the center console and going to shine light over everything so you can see and get stuff. And it's just, this thing is going to fulfill 3 requirements that I wanted from this tie bar. You know, this, I didn't even think about it. I only wanted 2. I wanted the speakers and the tie-ins for everything. But having the interior lights, extra interior lights, that is an absolute win. So let's get on to cutting out the inner part of the frame. And let's see if we can try and start fitting this, because there's going to be a lot of hammer and dolling to make this thing fit. At least make it fit like it's going to be working. So let's get right onto that. And I'm actually really excited about this. So let's go. Here it is. This is your inside of a trunk lid without that support. I think it looks like an overhead console. At least that's what I'm sticking. I'm sticking to it, you know. I'm going to go in there. I'm going to measure the absolute maximum. Actually, I'm going to go out and measure what I want, and I'm going to add like 2 inches or 5 centimeters to what I want, and then cut it. Then we're going to start shaping it to fit in. Phew. This has got to be cut off. This has got to be cut off. These ridges right here, I'm going to take the grinder and just cut them right off, because the speaker's going to fit in, and I'm going to bend the ridges the other way. That, to me, is a win. Well, let's see how it goes in before I call it a win. All right, let's go. Okay, we're going to take the width, or the absolute maximum width, which is going to be 20.5 inches right there. Everything else, I'm going to have to cut it down anyway, so I might as well give myself the most amount of room. I'm only probably going to go halfway here, and that's pretty much it. Now we'll take the width, which is from the window frame to window frame. Let's go from the window frame to the window frame, right there to right there. It's 43.5 inches. And you know it's going to be a minimum of a ½ inch in. So, but let's see if we can take 43.5 inches as our basic, how can I put this? Our starting point, and that way we can bend and stuff like that. And it should be okay, because we have, you know, we actually have 2 inches in this way before we have to, you know, meet the contact. But let's get 43.5 inches out of this trunk, which we can barely do, and start making it fit the Sport Quattro. Here we have the trunk lid. What it is, let's measure it. The actual shortest or smallest distance that we have is pretty much right there, which is 43 and 15/16. From here to here, for just, where the bend to bend, we have pretty much 16.5 inches. And that's not including the pinch weld on this side, because I'm going to cut it down to pinch weld, which is pretty much a 1/4 inch in. Same thing here. So I'll have 43.5 inches across, which is our maximum that we could possibly fit in there. Then I'm going to go up about 3 inches here, pound this down, and give us a flat surface to see how much we can trim off. We're going to be trimming a couple inches off anyway. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But let's start with as much metal as I can, and I'll get the grinder and we'll hack this thing up, and it'll give us a starting point. Rough. I'm going to pound that down first. That way we can at least put it inside the car, just to jack it up. Whew. Well, that looks like total garbage. But we're going to be cutting a lot of this up because the bend was so severe, there's no way I could take it out without slicing it up. But let's see what I can cut off. Let's put it in there. I'll set it up in the car to find out what we need to take off. Hopefully we can take a lot of this off, because it'll never get straight and it looks like shit. Even though it's covered up by the headliner, it still looks like shit. I don't want to put it in there. But hey, let's give this a shot and see what it looks like. This is kind of where I want it. I want this edge to go into the bottom of those holes, which gives me roughly, looks like about 10 to 12 millimeters of distance in between this edge and this edge. This is what I want to seal. I'm also going to make slits right here to weld onto this sunroof frame. Now, if we sit there and take this, good thing about having the bungee cord is you can move it around. And now we're looking over here at the frame. That is kind of, we have to go over onto the side now and figure out where we're going to cut in order to fit this up inside, and how much metal are we going to cut. So let's just go take a look at that so we can get this thing done. All right, that's roughly where it's going to be. And take a look at this. Here is the panel. I just pried that over. What it is, this is a crimp connection, pretty much, with glue, I think, or something like that in there. So what I got to do is take this off of this panel. I want this panel in its entirety to be welded to the roof to tie in the C pillar and the B pillar and the sunroof frame and the rear window frame. That's what I want it to do. With it having a crimp connection right here, is it strong enough? Yeah, possibly, but I don't want it. I want it welded. So I got to take this, bend this around, and then attach it to the structure of the car. The only good thing is that this this panel that I attempted to straighten out and miserably failed can now be just tossed to the side and used for filler plates. So let's get this off and we can continue on with the build. Now that's a rough panel, but let's see how that fits. So it looks a lot better than that, because I could clean up this a lot, And now that we know there was rust all underneath there, so we can fix that. This is where it's roughly at. So what I have is I probably have about 2.5 inches of metal I can weld to up into the B pillar. I kind of wanted 4 inches, but I'm going to try and get a little bit more because I want to bend this this ridge right here. I'm going to bend it a little bit more flat so I can cover back up into the, so I can go even further down the B pillar into this, or close to the frame. The other side, because this is basically set about right where the edge of the holes are in the rear window frame. So I'm going to take this out, I'm going to bend that down a little bit and start bending this stuff down so I can start fitting it more up into the roof of the car. I don't want to cut anything right yet. That's the reason why I just want to bend over, then I'll bend back, cut, then weld, so I can have this stuff all set up. Now that we have this panel pretty much roughly to where we want, I'm just going to start bending metal. That's it. And just so I can get the thing up to me exactly where I want it to be. So that's kind of the gist of the thing. Harbor Freight Jacks to the rescue. Big thing is making it equal. So when I start pounding this thing up inside, it's actually going to do something. You know, I think this might work. I had my doubts. I freaking had my doubts. But I think this might work. Oh, God. Now I got to take a pen and figure out or where to mark it. Because I got to definitely cut some of this side stuff off and bend it back up so we can meet the chassis. Just to, you know, to keep this hole here for the speaker. But I think it looks pretty cool. It'll look much better when it gets done, but I don't believe it. And it's a hell of a tie-in, you know. So let's, how can we do this? Let me clean some of this stuff up. I'm going to take it down and use the grinder and clean some of it up and cut, you know, just do a couple of bits of trimming and that's it. So, oh, I'm actually pretty psyched about it, you know. So, all right. Okay, it's equal with the back where I'm going to weld it there. I still have to do all the internal patch panels for the C-pillars to make sure those are completely stable. All the panels and all that stuff underneath this has to be done. Then I'm going to put this on. I got to take this off, use the flap wheel, clean it up. Seeing how these things kind of broke apart, I'm going to just cut them out and just use a new light. I got plenty of interior lights. I'll find something that'll go in there. It'll just, you know, just to give me light. That's the main thing. So let's grab the grinder and we'll start making the plates for the C-pillars. Tying that all in, grind this down, you know, clean it all up, then weld that in, and we'll be done with the episode. I kind of like this. So I like that. I just, you know, it's recycling more metal, you know. It's just, what a hillbilly I am. Well, there's that patch. I gotta cut it right here so the windshield frame rubber will go in there just nice. I can't have an extra pile on there, at least not that I can tell. Let me go do the other one, because I'm mainly looking at getting the center support in. That's my main goal. So let's get that other one done, That way we can get, you know, and all this is welded. That way I can get that thing tacked in before I run out of argon. Leap into action. Here's the gap that we have to fill. What a hellacious mess this is. But, oh well, hey, got more filing cabinet stuff. I just made a mark right here. What I got to grind off. It's going to go like that. You know, just conform it, weld it, and see what happens. Just more fun, huh? Now I'm going to weld all this to that plate, weld this to here, then put the entire plate over and weld it. You might think it's overkill, but you know what? It's, you know, it'll be worth it in the long run just in case something happens. I'd much rather have, you know, this not fail and this fail or this, but as long as it stays together. That's all I care about. But the next person who gets this car, I'll be dead anyway, so they can't sue me. Oh well. Now that that's cut and pretty much welded, not the greatest, but you know, hey, what the hell? It's on there. What I gotta do is let's go do the center tie support and continue getting this thing buttoned up. Here we are. We've welded the plates inside there. Not the greatest welds, but you know, what do you expect? This is our center tie-in for the B and C pillars and the sunroof assembly. You know, it's the whole thing. The main thing is this is a tie-in. The second thing is it's going to house speakers. Third thing is going to house interior lights and dome lights. First thing, we have to actually get this thing, because you can see when I pounded it up into the sunray frame, it buckled it right here. That's not going to be too much. I'm going to cut this and cut here and relieve the pressure and bring it back out. See, as you can see, it's all rusted down here and it's rusted right here. These dome lights will sit there and cover over that rust so I can cut the rust out. Because the lip is only going to be like 2 millimeters around this. Then we can clean that all up. Now for the speakers are, this is from a Mark 1, no, it's from a Mark 3 Jetta, 2 of 96, door speakers, I believe. The reason why I'm using these is not because they're great speakers, is because look at how thin they are. And when they sit in here, they won't hit the roof or the sunroof assembly when the whole tying in. So you know that way it's. You can also probably put insulation underneath it or muffle it or whatever car stereo guys do, you know. But I'm going to put this in, and it's just for fun. And seeing how I have 2 holes here that I ground out, you know, this is for the license plate. I have 2 tweeters. I can't remember where they came from. They might have come from Alpha 164 that I broke. I don't know. They kind of look like something that oddball. But what I'm going to do is put the hole saw here and run them right there so I don't have to weld up the holes. Well, you might as well fill the holes with something. You know, instead of adding weld, you might as well add a speaker. Why not? It's not hurting anything, you know. So let's get right on to it. Let's jump into it and let's cut those holes. And I'm going to trim this out for the speaker, and then we're going to start making everything right here all nice and pretty. So let's, or nice and functional. Pretty is really not in my vocabulary for most of my stuff, but let's make it something cool. So, all right, let's get the stuff going. These are just relief cuts, so when it goes in the back, it'll fold in this way. That way it'll overlap and I can weld them right up. Good. Well, it's roughly in there. Go to these. There it is. It's in there, not perfect, because this is cut for relief. When I get this entirely welded into the chassis, then I'm going to finish fitting this so it fits flush. That's, you know, this is all set up to where, okay, I'm good to go at this point, not really wanting to go any further until it's all welded in, because even if I like drill the holes for the speakers, it still might twist and they might not even be right. So why drill them twice? So let's, I'm going to go put this in the car and we're going to weld it right in. Okay, we got to the point where I'm pretty confident that this section is good enough for a rotisserie, because if we can get it all welded up, sandblasted up, that would be much easier for me to weld and be a lot quicker, especially when it's on the rotisserie. But let me go up, we have to go up top, we have to do a couple small things up there before we put the roof skin on and finish the C-pillars, so this thing will definitely go on the rotisserie. Let's go do that right now. We are here at the top of the car. As you can see, this panel, actually pretty stiff. Now, we have to do a couple things first before we go in and, you know, put this panel and start trying to weld it and match everything up and make it look halfway decent. The primary thing is this right here is a nipple for the drain tubes. The drain tubes have plastic tubes that run down to the bottom that basically allow the rain, when it goes through the seal, these seals that go around here just stop the big stuff. They don't stop really water. And you'll see on every single sunroof there's like a moat around the seal, and the seal drains out either through 2 front tubes or 2 rear tubes. Generally, if your sunroof leaks, these tubes are clogged. That's what happened, or one of them's clogged. So you have to have the ability to go in there, pull the tube out, blow it out, put it back on. And that's why I have to, and in this coupe it did not have that, so I have to have a hole here so I can have a set of pliers that goes up, pull the tube off, blow it out, put it back on. There we go. And the other thing is, I just have to put the sunroof rails in here to make sure the mechanisms just slide into the tabs back here, and I don't need to clearance them. That's it. That's going to take 2 seconds. Then we can start working with this panel onto here and run all the way back down the C-pillar so we can get the top closed up, ready to get sandblasted. So let me go grab the drill. I'm going to drill a pilot hole and we'll drill a couple holes. Here's the sunroof nipple right here that I was talking about. This is where the hose slides on. What I need to do is have a hole big enough to allow my pliers to expand out to grab the hose and to then pull it off and put it back on. Figured this would be about good enough. It looks like a little over an inch, and maybe an inch and an eighth, something like that. It's more than enough, and moving back and forth, it should be fine because you can just step it in. So let me grab the pilot drill, do that, then I'll grab the other the arbor for the hole saw and drill a hole. This right here is the sunroof and the sunroof panel and the frame. This are the sliders that the sunroof goes upon, slides in on and all that other fancy stuff. This right here is the front part of the frame. If you turn it over, take a look. This is where all the stuff goes, and it flows into those small moats, pretty much, the channels that basically take the water away and either send it to the back or the front of the car through the drain tubes. This is what it does. As you see right here, this is what they all look like, especially from this vintage. Big thing with these is that we got to make sure these tabs fit those these tabs fit those tabs in the back, and they'll actually fit, and there'll be no obstruction, because I don't want to hurt these. I can muck around with the metal, that's fine, but I don't want to hurt these. So let me go throw these in the car and let's see how it looks. Looks like we're gonna have to drill a hole right here. This is the mounting hole for this screw hole right here, and it needs to come down about 4 millimeters. So got my handy dandy pen. We'll mark this hole right here. Drill one up. looks like we have a winner. I now have to weld this and weld the same thing on the other side, and then we can start fitting the roof panel. Well, that's all welded in, that's all welded in. I gotta do the other side, and we will start fitting the roof skin. Whew. Now it's the panel's fused. We will now, I'll use the grinder, but this is, you know, definitely overkill, but that's what I want. Let's start fitting the roof skin. I don't believe it. Oh man. Now we're ready to join the two roof panels, the 5+5 and the Coupe GT. I put in a strip right here like I did before, just so they lay flat together. Let me show you some of the differences that I found out from the Coupe to the 5+5. First thing we have to do before we weld this together is we have to align this is the edge with this. So we have to bring it exactly where we want it. That way you can see the edge going just like this. Let me grab a ruler and show you that. Here's the edge that we're trying to line up. Here's the ruler. So if we take that and go right here, we want it to line up right with this. So bring that back a little bit. This is where we want it. Right where it starts. Because there's a little bit of up right there. But right there and right there is where we want it. That way when we put in the filler piece, it looks like it's supposed to be there. We have to go do the other side and get this thing pretty much squared up. But take a look down the sight line. This is what you're going to be running into. This 5+5 has a flatter roof than the Coupe, the way it sits. So what I want to do, in order to make this thing pretty much conform to the shape of the 5+5, because that's what you want to do, I am going to lift up the 5+5 and weld it in the center here, then stitch weld it down, and then drop it so it should spread out the wings, basically, is what it's going to do. I'm only going to weld like right here, and right there. So when it comes down, this section will go outward. I'd expect a millimeter or two, at least from the curvature. Don't know, but we're going to find out. Isn't this fun? This is what you got to run into. So if I screw up, guess what? Don't do it. I hope this thing doesn't look like blow. If I have a piece of wood, it brings it flat to where I don't have to push it down. And I want the largest big ruler I can to get this thing exact. I do not want it to look. I'm also trying to get it centered. So I also made a center mark right here. So you can do it all by eye. And see, this is absolutely flat. So if I burn the weld in here, I'm just going to use one tack, then go around it and see. Oh, I think that looks good right there. Well, we are at an impasse. I gotta put my thinking cap on how to do the C-pillars. That's the thing is, I've been looking at the photos of the Real Sport Quattro, how they did it, and I gotta think how to tie this in a little bit better. But the main thing is, I have this panel on, and this line matching up with the curves on the C-pillars. That's a big thing. And I also have the under the chassis tie-in. That's another big thing. But let me get my thinking cap on so I can get the next one out here really soon, hopefully, because I'm just going to go into it, but I got to first sit there and look at it and really debate about what I'm going to do. So, but hey, I just want to say thank you very much for showing up. I really appreciate it. You guys are a bunch of certified wackos who want to watch this stuff, and hopefully you guys will build one. You know, I don't want to be the only one out there with a junkyard rat rod sport Quattro. So you can do it. Anything you put your mind to, you can do. So I'm just a recycling hillbilly. I don't know anything. I'm just winging it as I go. So making it up as I go. So thank you very much for showing up. Hey, have a great one and see you next time.